And we're back. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone, to Yo, You Like That, the talk show where I have a guest of the streamer, PNG tuber, screen tuber, uh, all the tubers, all the streamer tuber varieties, all the varietal packs, onto the show where we talk about something that they love. We have our next guest here with us today. It is going to be, let me get him up on here. We have ForceGaia. Gaia, welcome.
Oh,
There we go. We got you on the
I no-
couch.
I noted how you included all the versions of tubers in your introduction there, especially as I am one of the others.
You're one of the others. That's all right. You are awesome, and I love your screen. It is everything I want in a screen. It's got buttons. I miss buttons on screens.
It was trying to find something to display myself on was tricky, but I found something that just screamed, "Yes, you're perfect." So just handed
Yeah.
it off to you.
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. Go ahead and give us a quick little intro about yourself. Tell everyone who you are, what you are, where you are, why you are.
So I'm ForceGaia. You might notice that I don't look like a person. I'm just an entity on a screen because I don't have a face yet. That is still in the. I'm still rendering that in from the future. It is stuff that will be coming, but for now I am this. I'm just a spectrograph with an ASCII art speaker. I stream 3 times a week, a variety of modern and retro games where me and Zarataro kind of bond over some of our old retro stuff, including the one that I'll be talking about today. Mondays I do a modern game. Wednesdays might be changing soon, but at the moment it's a management sim. And Thursdays is my retro night. And it's whenever I play, I like a story based game or say when I say management sims, it's kind of tycoons and things like that. So it's going to be a different one to adjust to because I know they're kind of chill streams. It's a different one for people to kind of talk alongside me with. But I'm
Yeah,
experimenting.
I like those.
I'm still finding my niche, but the idea is that I'm not there yet, and I'm fully accepting of that because I'm still working on things behind the scenes myself.
That you know, it's always going to be a continual work in progress. There will always be more updates to make. But you've done the first step, getting out there and doing it. So, and I always have a lot of like mad respect for people that take that first step because that's the hardest. It really is. We have the game that you picked with us here today. Let me go ahead and get it up and going. We have Freedom Force and its expansion, Freedom Force versus the Third Reich. Reich? That's how you say that, right?
Yeah, right. As in, but it's more like a sequel than an expansion. But yeah, so the box art is of the first game, but I've actually supplied capture of the second game, and I'm linking them together because other than some minor engine graphical improvements, they're practically the same game, bar the story. If that makes sense, it's not too hard to kind of just bundle them into. This is the Freedom Force experience, especially as there's no more than that. To be fair, you're switching between them.
Yeah, letting everyone show. This is the PAL box art, so this is the one that he got.
It's something we discovered on the first when we were talking beforehand that the box art that appeared in North America only appears in the PAL version, but not as box art, but as um like an intermission screen. Because so what I'm playing there is actually one of the intermediary missions in the Third Reich. And earlier on, just briefly, was the loading screen where it said, "Here's the current issue of Freedom Force." Because what it is, it's based in the '60s, where kind of like the comics of the times, and it was, and
Yeah.
if you remember historical, comics would actually include things that were relevant at the time. For example, one of the first villains that appears in Freedom Force is a Russian that known as Nuclear Winter. It was in the middle of the Cold War, is in that when it's set, so it's perfectly timed for Cold War against the Russian commie versus capitalist type comic content, if that makes sense.
Guy, are you
Um,
trying to put politics in my comics? How dare no, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
oh yeah. Um,
Whoever would guess.
oh, there's the amount of if one thing that all the villains in this have, or no, not all of them, but they're very driven into some of their opinion and some of their it's kind of like where some villains in some things are just evil for evil's sake or for chaotic sake. All of the villains in Freedom Force seem to have what they want to achieve, and they try and achieve it.
Yeah. And then
Because you go
that
from
actually for a comic book sometimes the evil for evil's sake is good, but if the villain has a cause he's fighting for, there's a little bit more depth to it, and also you also kind of put up a better fight.
yes, although in a couple of cases it kind of their cause turns out to be null as far as things when it comes out that you were trying to do that for what, or it's weird, but in some cases, but it makes a good cast of heroes and a good cast of villains for all intents and purposes, because
Yeah.
the it starts off as a guy called Frank Stiles, and who had worked on the Manhattan Project, the project from America that created the nukes that they dropped in Japan. But this is kind of like 20 years on from that, so he's retired and he's sitting on a park bench, kind of going, I'm feeling more useless now because I got booted off the project when he accused someone of being a communist spy. And then he sees that same person walking in front of him. What sees a guy handing off some documents to someone with a very thick Russian accent, and gets shot when he's discovered. Now, all the heroes have in common is this. Well, actually, not all of them, but most of them have this thing called Energy X. Because, unbeknownst to the people at the time, there's an evil alien overlord that wants to take over the galaxy or universe. But the idea is he's got a massive
Yeah, there
minion,
is.
and he thinks, no, let's this primitive planet, let's have some fun with it. Let's give him our super weapon and watch it destroy itself from within. When one of his guys betrays him and delivers NGX, well, attempts to deliver NGX to good people, but is then shot down. So all the NGX canisters basically scatter all over the place and hit random people. One of which hits a statue, which Frank, having been shot, touches and basically regenerates and becomes their version of Captain America,
The
the
Super
minute
Patriot.
the Minute
The
Man.
Minuteman. Yes.
Those villains
Oh,
might
such
have
a
killed
name.
Frank Styles, but they're about to meet the Minute Man. I used to be able to
I
recount that
love.
first thing by Atomic. So you've got other people such as El Diablo, a Mexican street gangster turned fiery fiery protector of everything in the neighborhood. A guy who is encased in a metal shell just to stop himself from exploding everything after he accidentally kills his brother and things like that. It's Then you've got the villains, Nuclear Winter. He's essentially a frozen guy with ice and radiation powers after he got hit by liquid nitrogen. So it's a the origin stories are always rather fun in many cases.
And it's comic book as comic book can be, which is a
Indeed.
great aesthetic for this kind of story. How did you discover this game? Like, where did you first find it?
So, uh, back in the day, my PC was not great. So it was always a case of what can I play on my computer, and it was because we didn't have any consoles until rather a bit later, and I was just looking through what it was essentially the bargain racks because we didn't have much either, and I had to kind of like pick it up, look at the thing, look at the specs. Can I play this? Was the first thing. If not, put it back, and it's kind of like, oh, well, I can play this. Look at it, seems good. Pick it up, and it comes one of my perennial favorites. And just the fact that I can play the first game is enough in that regard, and gets me into it. And I replay that game on every difficulty, going from very easy up to insane. Was one of my most replayed games until recently, but I then found out there's a sequel coming out. I get said sequel and I can't play it
No.
because, and this is just going into PC games at the time. This was before things were all standardized and were leveled of you must have DirectX thing. In fact, you had a bit of that, but there was a feature that was not on graphics card yet. Transform and lighting was not hardware based at the time. You had 3D acceleration, but
Oh.
all the lighting, um, and and transformation of camera stuff was done on the CPU. So it, we didn't have that. My GPU, my I wouldn't even say I had a GPU at the time. It was just some integrated chip on the motherboard. This was
Yeah.
the time when you didn't have APUs, you didn't have. I didn't have a graphics card. It was just whatever the hell the graphics unit was, and it didn't have hardware TLR. So I had to wait until until we had a computer upgrade to play Third and First versus the Third Reich, which had this magic feature on the graphics that have been involved in it. Um, Nowadays, this is the reason why they say that you must have OpenGL 3.x or whatever the hell in as part of thing, because it's what defines of what features the game can use. Back then, it wasn't as standardized. But once I got that, it was just I can now play them. And I mentioned to you earlier that the version of Three Forces Third Reich actually had a special DVD behind it, so I was tidying myself over. I can't play this game, but I can watch the bonus DVD and the DVD player until I can play it.
Yeah, and it is a fun little series. It's what would you call it? Kind of like a point and click, kind of like adventure
Strategy.
game, action game, strategy.
No, no,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
call it
a
a strategy game
strategy
'cause
action game.
so the as you can see, I'm doing in the game. So I actually captured this gameplay. The idea is that I'm pausing the action every so often, and pointing at people to select powers, because you've got like melee, beams, projectiles, direct
Yeah,
damage
yeah, yeah,
areas. The idea is that you can pause it, initiate commands, and just wait for it to continue. And the idea is that it's it's not so much 4x, but it's got more 4x real time strategy elements to it than an action game or certain other genres. It is definitely a strategy game rather than an action game.
yeah.
And it's got
The only
RPG
reason I
elements
think of
as well.
action is because, like you said, like there are moves you pick, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's kind of like in your Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but no, you are still like clicking on it. So
It
4x is probably a lot better
it's
comparison for
strategy.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
um, then you've got the cast of characters. You've got to pick which ones are going on the mission for to do different things. Um,
Yeah, pick your West Coast Avengers. Let's go.
I mean, in the thing you can see at the moment the four portraits in the bottom right. You've got Tombstone, the guy who was strapped to the electric chair, was about to be killed for the murder of his wife, which he didn't commit. When when they throw the switch, NGX hits the phone line, the power lines, and NGX goes into him as he's killed by the electric chair, and he comes back as Tombstone. Microwave, the robot from the future that they repurpose. 3 is Minuteman, and then 4 is one of the new heroes, Blackjack, who is not powered. He is from the wartime, because they've gone back in time to correct. Someone goes back in time, changes the course of World War II. Germans win, and so they're going back
Ooh,
to fix that.
gotcha.
And Blackjack is one of the heroes of the era.
Nice. No, that's cool. I was like we had talked a little bit about this before, but I was looking up the developer for the game, and Irrational Games was the ones that made this, and immediately
So
I'm thinking like, holy crap, System Shock, BioShock, they're the guys that made this. I had
I was going to
no
say
idea up until
many people
today.
don't recognize Irrational as a company. It's one of the publishers, because this was published by EA.
Yes.
Or at least the first one was. I can't remember what the second one was. I don't think it was, but at least the first one was EA, or Electronic Arts, because they didn't go by EA at that point. It was purely a full Electronic Arts. Um, but Irrational developed them both, and there was going to be a third series in the game where you actually, in theory, you had a couple of the younger heroes, Sea Urchin and Liberty Lad. They were going to be grown up and some other things happen, but that never happened. Bioshock happened.
No.
I
To
hated
2K
Bioshock.
like that BioShock money.
Yeah, I mean, I hated Bioshock for you killed one of my favorite series. Then I started liking Bioshock, but even then, it's kind of like I still want this to come back, but it's not gonna. It is not
No.
gonna come back. This was not popular enough. You can now get
Maybe
this
we'll get
on
like a one day like a spiritual successor indie game one day. Fingers
mixed.
crossed.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheap enough to buy on both Steam and GOG. This, but I would very much say don't do it, because what I captured this on, and this is a fun thing. Um, this will not. Neither of the games run really well on Windows 10, or at least not without a lot of finagling. Um, this is running on Ubuntu. Thank you, Steam
Oh.
Proton.
Oh man.
So I'm running this through Steam Play, so the Steam Deck translating Windows stuff in thing, and it's running on the lowest version of Proton ever. Otherwise, it wouldn't run. You can actually sometimes notice some artifact, but it's kind of this was an utter pain in the rear to get running. It's part of the reason I said I'd capture this footage.
I appreciate it so much. Yeah, no, I've. It might have ended up at the point where if I tried to do it, I just would have had just screenshots, just like rolling like a slideshow.
But
Oh
this is
man,
doing the mission I'm
who would
doing
you
is to
say is
get
your favorite? Who would you say your favorite character in this is?
uh, not shown in this one, but the ant. He is the stereotypical nerd. So think of Spider-Man getting bitten by the
Hmm.
radioactive spider. The ant is hit by NGX while he's holding some ants he's examining. Because he's basically looking at the ants in an ant hill, got magnifying glass out of them. When he's kicked by the ant, because he's bullied by the stereotypical 50s, 60s bully on the nerd sort of deal. Um,
Yeah.
but then he's hit by NGX and gains the power of the ants because he can climb up walls, super strong, etc. And then finds out those bullies are going to rob a candy store, so he beats them up and becomes the ant. But the thing is, he becomes so much more charismatic because he just gets a confidence boost. For example, just some of his quips. For example, when he is introduced, he's actually brainwashed. He actually sends a horde of ants over, giant-sized ants over Patriot City when he's under the control
Oh no! Call
of
the
a
EDF.
of an entity known as Shadow, who thinks she's ugly and disfigures people, and wants to take people underground so they don't have to see the light of day. Um, then he kind of the brainwashing wears off, and it's kind of like, and as though I'd really like a girlfriend, I'd prefer one who wasn't a homicidal maniac. Uh, and that's one of his first things. He comes after kicks out of the out of his brain control. Or a few missions later, you've got essentially a guy who's called Mr. Mechanical. He's trying to destroy all inferiorly architectural buildings, and it's because even though he's a crap architect himself, he goes, there's he and Yant goes over the PA, guys, hey guys, giant robot alert, and I mean now, because Mr. Mechanical has gone all Megazord on him and it's got massive ass robot and it's destroying buildings nearby. Um, I mean, in the Freedom Forces Third Reich, it's kind of like on the first mission he's introduced with, it's kind of like if any case anyone forgets, nuclear missiles go very very fast. Minuteman, what do we do? So he just has the right quips at the right time when he's either doing the mission control on and going through the psychic link or is on mission. I mean, even after that, it's probably microwave where it's kind of like initiating query. Where is entity or when blackjack is first thing, it's kind of like notice observation. Target is not blackjack; it is uncanny simulacrum because blackjack just leaves a lure that looks like him, and
Yeah.
it's just the way he does it. It's typical robot analysis, and it's rather fun. Problem is, as a hero, he's pretty slow to move because he's a robot
Uh.
metal.
Yeah.
So
No, that's cool. Yeah. What? Oh man. I wonder what it is about just like insect themed like heroes that are just like so easy to like attach to. Maybe it's like you said, like just like they're given the most kind of like fun personalities to
I
follow.
mean, he's definitely Peter Parker is definitely a very big influence on him in that regard, because he's got a very similar personality. To him. But then even then, you've got other other ones such as El Diablo, who's just a ladies' man, and uh, or Manbot, who is just angsty because he killed everything, because he killed his brother and doesn't want, and he feels in theory because he threw his thing like that,
The
or
guilt, the
yeah, the
guilt, the
guilt.
guilt hero.
Um, or who else is there that's kind of fun to use? But then you got to, I mean, even the villains, because deja vu. So anyone know Twice from My Hero Academia? This is Twice, except he's known as Deja
Oh,
Vu, and he speaks in rhyme. So
yes.
he can create duplicates of other people and duplicates himself. And he goes, "Why have one when you can have two? It's time to meet Deja Vu." Liberty Lad, who is Minuteman's essentially um, sidekick turn thing after he gets blood transfusion from Minuteman. That's how he receives his NGX. But
Oh, so kind of like
uh,
Bucky. Okay, yeah.
and it's a Deja Vu. I'd remember if I'd seen this one before. And the response is, "Your memories are not at fault. Let's begin the clone assault." Yes, I remember some of these. off the top of my head because it sticks in your memory so well. There's another way is creating clones of everybody, and it's um my all my clones see me as an idol. Too bad they're all homicidal, and it's kind of like some
That's
of
pretty
the
good.
some
That's
of the
pretty good.
yeah uh the writers must have been having fun and cringing at the same time.
Gotta have a little bit of both. Um, yeah, no, I mean, like you said, the third one was canceled. But there are a lot of those like old strategy, like 4X games that are kind of getting ported to like modern consoles, like your old Wastelands and your old like Neverwinter, Baldur's Gates. Uh, if like a consoleized version of this like came out, would you think that would kind of like maybe help spark interest in stuff like this going forward?
I mean, I don't have memories of some of the older ones purely because of the aforementioned really crappy computer, because as well as lack of money and anti-gaming dad of all people. And it's so some of them I didn't get to see. I mean, most of my things came off bargain racks. Settlers is the
Yeah,
other. The Settlers 4 was my first main 4X so that sort of thing, and those still do well. It's kind of like because you got like um there was another one. Was it an Age of Empires that got remastered recently? That it's kind of, but it's all the big series. They get the remasters,
yeah.
all the pre love. Whereas there's some of the lesser series that don't get as much love. So, oh, and I just realized because I missed it. I think the other thing is that this game does is is the nice vignette of the origin stories.
Yeah.
Because I actually showed blackjacks on it before, so I missed mentioning that at the time. So it's kind of so some of you actually get to see all the origin stories in very nice rendered cutscenes. But I was saying I think in order to get remasters of this or even the games like it, it would need to be a very beloved one, and this didn't have the love. It's a cult classic, and there are some things. I think there's a mod for it called Freedom Force X that improves some of the flaws with it, and adds a load of different damage types. Because this game has damage types akin to Pokemon. So
Oh, okay, so like advantages like radiation probably better against like flesh, but flesh will probably be better against like I don't know,
it's
uh,
not the same way. You've got material
criminal.
types. You've got material types is what people are made of. And then you've got attack types. It's slightly different, but you've got like heat, cold, electrical, energy,
Ah, okay.
radiation, acid. It's another one I'm forgetting. Oh, then you got crushing and piercing as your main other one type. So
You
bullets.
gotta have crushing and piercing.
Um, but the idea is that different material types are different ones, have different resistances. Um, but they change them in, and as well as different costs to have the character. But the idea is that, and they change some of these in between the games. So versus in the first game, flesh was weak to radiation and acid, whereas in Third Reich it had no weaknesses or resistances. And
It was just the neutral one. Okay.
yeah, and they varied what they had. But then you've got attributes that can vary it up. So, for like thin-skinned adds piercing as a weakness, but lowers the cost of the character. Or temperature
Oh.
controls add resistances to heat and cold. Or um, and then you've got mental and mystical damages, which are not damages, but they're pure status types. And then you've got the statuses of other types, like acid burn and irradiation, which deals acid damage or radiation damage. It just and a variety of like status conditions like
Yeah,
frozen
a
status.
lot, a lot of depth, a lot of characters. No, it's definitely a game that definitely has a lot of love put into it. Yeah, fingers crossed one day we'll get something of it
Similar.
again. Similar.
I mean,
We'll see.
another of my
The
favorite.
future is crazy. People are bringing back all sorts of weird stuff.
Oh yeah, as I was about to say, it's kind of like some of my old favorites, like Wario Land. You've got people making Wario likes now because Nintendo have shelved that as an entire concept. So people are making things like Pizza Tower and Anton Blast to
Yeah.
recreate those games that people love without running into issues with copyright, as well as just putting their own spin on it. It's kind of, but I don't think it would need to take. I mean, I'm not sure. There was some things like Heroes of Might and was it no, it was a City of Heroes or City of Villains, something like that. Which,
Yeah, City of
but
Heroes and Villains.
it didn't have the same sort of like as here as Freedom Force. I think I tried it once.
No, no, no. It was. It did some similar things like the vignettes and the kind of like story kind of beats, but no, that was definitely more of like the early MMO. Again, um, almost before its time. If like both of these maybe had come out in the Marvel age, like maybe it would have been a different history. But
Oh, most
uh,
definitely. Kind of trying to think of any kind of superhero games that have come out recently, so to speak, that are not Marvel themselves or
that
DC.
are not Marvel themselves. That's tough. Oh, well, the only one I can think of is Chroma Squad, the indie kind of like strategy game based off Power Rangers Super Sentai.
Okay.
But even then, that's not quite the same.
I mean, that's become a resurgence, so to speak, because the amount of Power Rangers games that have been, the Boom Comics are doing things like that, and also Hasbro doing its thing. But um,
Ah, I miss Power Rangers games. Like low key, like they're pretty fun. I think we can stream some of those this month. Thank you. I know that's such a random thing to come out of this like stream or this talk show, but it's like, oh man, I want to play a Power Rangers game.
I mean, I'm doing the Kamen Rider game on and off on the Saturdays every so often. So
You are. Oh, I love like checking in on that. You said that should be done next weekend, right? You got one more session?
no, I'm not. I don't reliably do it on Saturdays. Whenever I know I've got a free weekend, I plan it. It used to be guerrilla, like when I was not sure what I was doing. Um,
Yeah.
Um, but now it's kind of when I had one person that was rather invested in it and doesn't know it, and he just likes me gushing about it. He's actually semi interested now because he's followed me through with it. One of my regulars, and it's kind of like I think I should probably actually start scheduling this. And it's kind of I think I've only got one more session of it left, pretty much after a pretty long session last weekend. But it's uh, the few weekends I've got. It kind of depends on what time it is, and I mean this weekend, I
Yeah.
expect there's going to be lots and lots of explosions on Saturday, so probably not a good time to stream.
Probably not the best time.
For the Americans who don't realize this, November the 5th in the UK is ad time. Um, um, for November the 5th in the UK is Guy Fawkes Night, so essentially we have as much fireworks as you would have on an Independence Day. So you'll have
Yeah.
lots of and for that I'll probably go down to a local show, so it's kind of I will not be free to do any streaming on Saturday. So it'll probably be the weekend after, if all, yeah, bonfire night. Um, so it might be the week after, something like that, but it's kind of like I'm changing. I'm trying to clear things up as it is. So
Okay. No, that sounds cool. But yeah, no, I definitely like have fun. And real fast before we go, let's go ahead and take a question from the audience. If anyone has a question in regards to the game or something they would like to ask ForceGaia, please go ahead.
I do note that I've actually kind of preempted a lot of your questions because I've got to know your prompts. But it's kind of the recommendation thing is kind of like, no, I wouldn't recommend this game purely on the grounds of you don't want to deal with this nightmare of getting it set up
Oh, yeah,
unless you
yeah.
know
No,
what
I
you're
mean,
doing.
I was gonna say whenever you start talking about how like you couldn't really like get it going, I'm like, yeah, I probably don't need to talk about recommending this one.
No, it's. I mean, I like a nice technical trouble, but it's kind of at certain times it's kind of like, nah, I've got to deal with. I do want an easy way of doing it, and Steam Protons just give me that. So here's a bit of advice: if anyone ever has issues trying to get a PC game running, um, try it on Linux if you can get away. And I'm more than happy to answer questions like that because you can actually get it running using Steam Proton, and it will just generally just work. So like this,
Let's
it
see.
might have some graphical issues, but I see Mists. I think so. Was it
Yeah.
XCOM style? I think I don't really know much about XCOM. I think I own one of the games, and I thought it
Mm,
was more tactic style because XCOM's turn-based, right?
XCOM is, or at least the newer XCOMs, they're turn-based and they're also more terrain-based. So, XCOM involves a lot more kind of like using the terrain to kind of like hide you, so you can kind of like prevent damage and attacks.
Oh, you can do that to a
Um,
certain extent in Freedom Force. Flight,
oh well, then
because flight
yeah,
will
actually
actually make
then
flight will
there's
render
probably a
you
lot
immune
more
to all
like
to yeah.
in relation to them at all. I think probably the thing with Freedom Force is that it doesn't have turns. So
No,
you
it
kind of
doesn't.
that's
That's
why
the
in
pausing.
guy's footage he was pausing so they could actually have like the chance to like do his actions effectively.
Yeah, get the lie down because you can click on things just do a default action, but half the time you don't want to be doing the default action unless it's just a mook. And here's the thing: I was actually I wouldn't say cheating, but the footage I was capturing. It was captured in very easy mode, so I wasn't having to slog to do anything, and so there was no danger of me kind of my rustiness making me get killed and have to replay it. So it was a case of everything just dies in one hit. Um, but it's but yeah, you can have people on buildings, for example. So the traversal ones, you've got like flight, jump, and wall climbing as attributes. So flight means you can't use any physical attacks, but it also means that you can't be hit by them, but doesn't mean you're immune to projectiles, beams, and direct attacks in some areas. Um, Wall climbing and jumping allows you to jump on top of buildings. So if you've got a gunner on top of a building just pot shotting at you, you can't get it unless you can get up there, short of destroying the building. The problem is that if you destroy the building, you lose prestige, and this is how you recruit new heroes and things like that. Um, because one thing I didn't
Wow. Okay.
cover
So like the way you're explaining there's a lot of overlap with XCOM now that you say that because
there
like
is quite a bit.
XCOM you
There
can
that's
blow
out of
up
it.
the environment too to kind of get to people.
Oh yeah, it's gonna mean in Freedom Force you can also pick up cars and throw them. Use traffic lights as clubs, as long as you've got the appropriate strength attribute. Or what else is there? There's just general things you could do in a comic book. They try and emulate, given the what you could do at the time in with a certain level of development time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But
You know
it's
it's kind of funny. I just looked it up. 2K, the people that own pretty much like Freedom Force at the moment, they also own XCOM. So
okay. I mean, I've got an XCOM. It has been on my to play list properly, but it's not properly gotten around to playing it. But the other thing I was going to mention is that you can recruit heroes that can like in certain things. You got like you get the ones you gain through the story, then you got ones that kind of like, oh, I've heard about Freedom Force. I would like to be recruited by Freedom Force, and you use your prestige, your reputation to recruit them, and it eats into it. So you can't actually have all heroes in all one playthrough. But the thing is that you stunt your prestige gain if you harm civilians, destroy buildings you're not supposed to, things like that. So, um,
yeah,
someone mentioned asking my favorite heroes. Anyone who can't annoying us can't stand them. Heroes or villains in that case. So, or both in that
most
case.
annoying. Just one. Pick it.
Trying to think through the entire cast. I think it's more just noises that you gotta get used, like because every time you execute an attack, there's always some lines you always get fed up of hearing all the time because there's only a finite amount of them. Um, Rattling my brain through through the entirety of the cast. Personality wise, actually no. As far as using and personality wise, Mentor, who is their answer to an alien Doctor Strange, he is a mentalist.
Okay.
In both games, his abilities are shite. His damage potential is awful. He's literally a status dealer in one, because his physical attack is just so slow and everyone just dodges it. It's powerful if it hits when it does, um, and in most cases he can't be used because he's running mission control. Um, he's wordier than me, and is patronizing when people go, "I don't understand what you're saying." For example,
Gotcha. So
Bullet.
just kind of like a jerk that's not even like
He's not.
anything to
No, he's
actually
not a
like have on
jerk.
the team.
No, he's not a jerk. He's very ambivalent to where things go. But on the same grounds is that he's just that wrong kind of boring. He's useless in combat, and what he says in double the amount of words it needs to say. And and I know I have a habit of doing that, and that's saying something. So
Cool, cool. Well, Guy, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. This was a lot of fun talking about this. I even got to learn a
it,
whole bunch of stuff
I
like
mean,
that
it's
I
gonna
didn't
be.
even know about it.
I mean, one thing you didn't know about was the fact it uses it. There's a level of Python being used, Python scripting used to actually script the missions, and it's
I
kind of you
didn't
don't
even know you
normally
could
see
use
that in
Python for
games.
games.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's sort of thing you only get from a developer and techie like me, it's like or the technical knowledge and things behind what's going on with the graphics at the time. So, but it said this is something I was thinking, do I put it on my own channel or not? When you approach me for this, kind of like I don't want to play this for the umpteenth time. It'll give me a chance to revisit it and introduce some people without having to go through the entire thing. So.
Yeah. Cool, cool. Well, thank you again so much, and everyone check out ForceGaia. Like he says, he does like different kind of theme days for his streams: modern days, classic days, sim
One of which is
days.
tonight.
One of which
Uh,
is tonight. So feel free to
yes.
check in on that.
So yeah, it's Mondays is my modern day. Currently, it's alternating between Chris Tales and Near Automata. Last Monday was Halloween, so I did actually Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Rare Rabbit, because just as a silly thing. Wednesday is my management sim. So at the moment, it's 2 Point Campus. Um, I'm doing finishing off 3 starring things on that one, and that will start in an hour-ish time at 9 p.m. UK time. And Thursday is my retro day, which is currently Majora's Mask. And once that finished, Wallace and Gromit will be taking over its slot most likely. I want to see what I can get through because I'm trying to clear a few things. 'Cause I did alternate on all slots at one point, so I've got other things I want to
Cool,
play and I want to
cool.
get through things. So
Well, I want to thank everyone for stopping in to watch the show. We will be doing another Yo, You Like That here at 6 p.m. Central Time. Well, we will be having Suki Tanuki and Forgotten Dreamer on, so feel free to stop in and watch that as well. Guy, you have a good rest of the night and a good stream, good sir, and I will be talking to you later.
thank you. Goodbye.
All right, everyone. Y'all have a good day. Bye, Q.